Question of the day. What is your favorite of all of the escape room type game genre that there is? Now, there's a lot of options now. I'm going to tell you my favorite right now, and it's a little bit of a cheat of an answer because it predates the genre. My favorite experience I've ever had in an escape room or puzzly type game was Time Stories Asylum. That first major puzzle blew us away. And then we started playing real escape room games, in town, and then started coming out with the games in the box, and they've been really fun experiences. When you unlock a puzzle and it just works, there's nothing more magical feeling than that, in my opinion. It just feels great to get a puzzle and it's like, holy cow, we did it. But today we're talking about a different type of one. This is an interesting concept, Mystery House. But we're talking about the Pharaoh's expansion of Mystery House, in which you are in Egypt, and it takes the concept and it puts a pyramid on top of the board. So if you played Mystery House before, essentially you're going to take these cards and put them on the grid. Now, I can't show you Mystery House, the Pharaohs, because there's a lot of spoilers in it, and it's a visual puzzle. So I'll put some overlays of what it looks like set up, but I'm not gonna do a how-to. I'll tell you how to play right now, but I'm not going to show you how necessarily because it would spoil everything for you. But it takes a pyramid, puts it on top of the box. But normally Mystery House has these little walls and doors that you put in, and you look through the side of the box and you interact on the app. Okay, so this is G2. This is card G2. I go into the app, I hit G2. I then put interact. I can explore it. If I have an item that I've collected, maybe I can use a fire to burn something, or maybe use something. There's all sorts of options that you can do. But that's what Mystery House does. Now, this one is a Pharaoh expansion, or an Egypt expansion, so you have a pyramid on top, which looks really cool on the table. So let's, well, we're not going to do an overview because I can't really show you anything, but let's transition now to the final thoughts, and we'll come back up after that and in the video. This is a weird transition. All right, so let's talk about Mystery House in general first. Pros and cons. Now, the pros of the Mystery House concept to me are the game looks very cool. It's a visual representation, right? You've got the puzzles and how they're represented in the game. It just looks cool to me that you've got those windows and doors. And what is that? What's that back there? Can you see that? Or how many things are over here? And you're having to actually look. I love that concept. And I think it's really fun, and I'd love to see it explored more. Currently, there's 2 in the main box, and then this Mystery of the Pharaohs one, and there's more, I believe. But I really like how the concept is. Now, where I ding it is the puzzles themselves. Here's what I mean by that. At least in Pharaohs, are very count-related. How many of this thing to punch in and do this thing? Versus, there's less of that kind of logical puzzle. Does this mean that? Right? One of the things you get as a item early on is a little obvious what you do with it, as opposed to, now what are we supposed to do with this, right? The other problem with this that there can be is if you put one single card in the wrong spot, it can really jack everything up. I'm talking about majorly. And if you don't discover it till you're 20 minutes in, well, then you've almost got to restart at that point. But all in all, as far as the plus side of that, again, I love the way it's set up. I love the way it looks. But the problem with it is some of the puzzles feel just too linear due to the game's mechanics. And what I mean by that is take escape and unlock, or exit and unlock, for example. Exit is not app-based at all. It's completely card-based. And it's difficult to find hints and things like that because you're having to flip through cards and all that. Unlock is a little bit of both. It's card-based and app-based. If you find something on the card, you can have that card. Whereas Mystery House is not like that. You don't get to, at least in this one, you don't get to look at something on a wall and go, oh, that means this. I bet we get item whatever. You have to do everything through the app. So that's a little grating on my nerves. However, the visual element of this game, to me, is what makes it really fun. You're looking at something, and it's a 3D representation of kind of this pyramid, and that kind of stuff to me is really cool. So where I'll ding it is the puzzles are a little linear in the sense that there's none of these that you have to logic out. They're all things that you have to basically kind of go around and potentially see and punch in those numbers into the combination. I don't want to give any more detail than that because it will kind of ruin it if I talk further about it. So that's the downside of it. But the upside is, again, that visual element. So should you play Mystery House? Well, first and foremost, if you like escape room games anyway, I think you're going to want to try this just because it's a different experience. The way it's set up, the way it's built is different. And I like how you look inside of it. If you don't play escape rooms games, this is not the first one I'm going to recommend to you. I'm going to recommend Unlock first. But if you're kind of on the fence and you're like, well, I like some, don't like the other ones, I would recommend trying this one if you don't like those logical puzzles. If you like to look and see this, here you go, great example. This feels a little bit more like those games on the iPad and formerly on the PC and all that stuff, where you had to find the hidden objects, right? You'd find the hidden objects and it would unlock stuff. It feels more like that, even though there are some puzzles to unlock and you kind of have to think, wait a minute, I wonder if that's what that means. Versus like, oh, holy cow, that is what that means. The difference is it's not Time Stories Asylum and more like, oh, I bet that's what this is. So there's not that level of, ooh, we just solved the puzzle. It's more like, oh, that was cool, you know. So just know that going in. I do recommend you try it. I think it's a really great concept. And again, there are multiple missions in the main box, but this, I really like how the Pharaoh's one looks. I like the idea of it. I will say having to do the app alone is a little tricky because at one point we clicked on one of the tiles and it said like space error, time space, not time space, excuse me. It was like a coding bug. Now it didn't affect the gameplay, but in the back of my mind I thought, what if this is affecting the gameplay? It said something like time code error or something like that on the choices of things to pick. And we were like, well, let me click it. Nothing happened, of course. So the puzzles aren't too hard. There was one, though, that we were like, huh? How does that make sense? But I guess looking back on it, I can kind of see how it works. But based on the clue you're given to solve this puzzle and based on what the answer to the puzzle is, it's like, well, never would have gotten that except for luck. So it is a fun experience. I do recommend this. If you've already got Mystery House, 100% get this. If you don't have Mystery House and you like escape room games, I recommend you getting this one. It's a really, really cool concept and it changes the genre by actually doing something unique. If you're not a big fan of these type of games anyway, then I would skip this. If you like those point and click adventures of finding hidden objects, I would check this out though. So that is Mystery House with the Pharaoh's expansion. I'm Bryan Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Dice Tower Bryan. Until next time, we'll see you.